So if I spent a lot of time designing and building this scanning frame, which allows for super precise camera scanning, why would I buy an old Coolscan 5000, which is arguably the best 35mm scanner ever made? I recently spotted this Coolscan 5000 on sale locally for a fairly decent price. Now, it was in rough shape, and given the state of the house it was in, and the fact that it was not stored well, that's not surprising at all. But after some quick testing, I found out that the scanner appeared to be working, so I bought it so I could clean it up and use it. To restore this scanner, I had to do two jobs. Number one, take the scanner apart and clean the inside, removing the dust bunnies hiding in there. I also have to clean the mirror which sits between the film and the lens in the scanner. So in this model, the scanner actually faces this way and the film goes across. So there's a mirror here at 45 degrees that it uses to be able to see the film. And I have to clean that mirror properly, because if it's any dirt on that mirror or any marks, it actually will affect the quality of the scans quite a lot. A big part of maintenance on the Cool scanners is keeping that mirror clean. I also have to take off all the outside panels to clean the thing and wash all the covers, because it was really nasty. And then lastly, there's also the full roll mod I want to do, also called the SA30 mod, but I'll talk about that later. But first, let's get this apart and get her cleaned up. So this is a Nikon Coolscan 5000, and it is arguably the best 35mm film scanner ever made. However, as you can probably tell, this particular Coolscan 5000, which I managed to get for a reasonably good price, is in a bit of a state. It's very dirty, and while it does work, it's having some trouble scanning, in particular when using digital ice, because it's failing to remove all the dirt. And the reason I think that is because there's a mirror in here, and if that mirror gets too dirty, it picks up too much dirt on the infrared scan, and therefore the digital ice fails, which, given the overall state of the scanner and the amount of dirt on it, really isn't that surprising that it's failing to scan. So I need to take this apart. So I managed to get the mirror out, and look at that, that should be spotless. Look at that, is one dirty boy mirror. So what's interesting about this mirror is that it's silvered on the outside, not the inside. So you have to be super careful when dealing with this. So I'm going to use a PEC pad to clean it, and a little bit of lens cleaner. You notice I have a little bit of tissue here, which is just so the mirror wouldn't drop into the machine and get damaged. So when I've cleaned the mirror, I'm pretty much done inside the scanner. I don't need to do anything else. I might just see if I can see the optical path, but it looks fairly clear in there, so hopefully it'll scan good. I just need to make sure this mirror is cleaned up. Okay, be very, very careful with this. You do not want to scratch or damage this mirror, because it will damage every single scan the thing takes. That is absolutely spotless once again. So for the rest of the scanner, which I'm just blowing out here with a rocket blower, I think I'm going to bring it downstairs and use the DAT vac. It's just a high power blower. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Let's tie out that clip. Not bad, not bad at all. So I've got some screen cleaning wipes here, which I'm just going to use to wipe down the surfaces, wipe off any gunk on these outer parts. Just clean out where the film slide goes in, just as far as I can with my fingers. That should do the job. I'm going to maneuver this mirror in, which is going to be tricky because it needs to sit. It sits on this clip. So I need to push this down, and I should be able to just slip it in. This is a lot fiddlier than it looks. Okay, so the mirror is now in. Now I just need to raise this whole unit up. And hopefully, no, it's slipping out of place. Okay, so I actually managed to get the mirror in. It was not easy because to get the mirror in, you have to like get it up into this little slot here. It's really difficult with that little clip, but I got it in. Took a lot of fiddling, but it's in. And it appears to be in the right way around and held in place well. So now it is time to clean all the exterior panels. Probably just going to wash them in the bathroom, to be honest, and put it back together. So I'm going to get the plastic off of this, wash it. Time to bring these downstairs and wash them. Okay. So that's looking a lot better. These parts are looking clean, rinsed, and put them outside to dry. So it is bloody hot out here. Oh, there we go. Put these out here to dry. This side panel, it's actually almost dry itself. Here's the front panel. Turn that over. See, it should be dry in a few minutes. So now with all the parts cleaned, it's time for the mod. So for these scanners, there are inserts for scanning different formats. There's the slide mount adapter, which lets you scan mounted slide, and you sort of pop them into it like using a floppy disk. Do I need to explain what floppy disks are? Am I really that old? There's also the SF210 slide feeder, which can actually batch scan a pile of slides. And there is even the Nikon IA20 APS adapter for scanning APS film. But this scanner came with the SA21 strip reader, which takes up to 6 frame strips at once and scans each image automatically. But there's also the SA30, which can do entire uncut rolls of up to 40 exposures automatically, which would be amazing as I develop my own film, and that means I can just take the film down off the dryer, feed it into the scanner and have it scan the whole roll automatically. Those SA30 adapters are very expensive when you can find them. However, some clever people figured out that the SA21 and 30 as strip film adapters are identical, and the only difference is that 2 pins here on the back on the SA30 are connected together, which indicates to the scanner that you have an SA30 connected in. And now you have the ability to scan full uncut rolls automatically. Now only the Coolscan 4000 and 5000 can actually use this mod, as there needs to be a door on the back of the scanner to allow the film to pass through while it's feeding. So while I have the scanner apart for cleaning, I can just do the mod as well. So with all those parts nice and clean and drying outside, it's time to disassemble this to get to this circuit board here so I can short out those pins and convert it to an SA30. From what I read online, there's 2 ways you can modify this. One is to bridge 2 of these pins here. Another one is to bridge the 2 pins by the Nikon. And I'm probably going to do this version. So the right 2 pins are bridged. That's excellent. Just using a multimeter's continuity tester to test that the result is working. Now it's time to reassemble this whole thing. Just need to move the soldering iron out of the way so I don't burn my hand. Wouldn't be the first time. Clean them separately, let's just get it back together. Okay, so the circuit board goes in, long screws to hold it down. Okay, that's it. Done. Let's fire up and see if she works properly. Gotta love that 90s beige USB 1 cable. She made noise, generally a good sign. Okay. Good news, everyone. The folder is showing. Nikon Scan 4 is showing 40 frames, so that's excellent. So I'll click preview, see if she works. She's sucking the film in. So it would seem like she's working. Come on. She is making noise. This film is also quite dusty. There was an error in performing a scan. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. So I really wanted to actually use the Nikon Scan software that Nikon made for these to run the scanner. But unfortunately this is a Windows 11 machine, and running like old Vista software with weird unsigned drivers and having to modify Windows to allow unsigned drivers in this like advanced reboot section of Windows for like the really advanced settings, and trying to get the damn thing to work, and then it just basically, long story short, it doesn't work properly. There's some sort of crazy bug in Nikon Scan on Windows like this where if you have digital ICE turned on and you try to scan in a batch and you end up doing a second image, it just straight up fails to scan. Now I can bring this up here. You can see here this has digital ICE turned off because you can see all the dust on the scan. But if I turn on digital ICE, it just fails to acquire the image. There's some sort of weird bug issue thing going on. I don't know what it is. So you can't really use Nikon Scan anymore to run the scanner. Maybe in the future, if I really like it, I'll actually buy like an old clapped out laptop, refurbish it, put an SSD in there and put Windows XP on it so I can run the scanner on an XP machine and just copy to an SD card or something. So instead of that, we're just going to use a Vuescan. It's just easier. Now unfortunately I was fiddling around in the device manager with different drivers, so I need to fiddle with that first. Just close down Vuescan, imaging devices. So this is set to, this says Nikon Super Coolscan 5000. I need to update the driver. Search automatically. This will replace it with the Nikon LS 5000, which is the Vuescan driver. So now I can just use a Vuescan 64. And I'm just going to use Vuescan to run this. The colors aren't quite as good, I've found. They're a little bit all over the shop. But we've got Vuescan here. For scanning, I've got this little short strip of negatives, 10 exposures. This is actually the very end of a roll. One thing I did discover with Vuescan, and this is very important, is that you trim the film to be right near the end of the film. So this is at the end, and then you trim this off to be close to the frame. So it's, you know, about the same distance as the gap between the frames. There should be no issues with frame alignment. So to prep it, I've got this little anti-static brush that I'm just going to run the film through and back through a few times. You know, digital ICE is amazing and all and works really well, but you really don't want it. I mean, to look at it, make sure the writing is the correct way around. So if the writing is normal to us, we just feed it in end first. So now that I've loaded it, Vuescan will automatically detect that, and it should auto do the previews down along. I managed to get the frame offset dialed in at 4, so it's all working correctly, and now it's just doing a batch of previews, so it's just going to move through the entire roll and do a preview image before a scan happens. Pro tip, if you're running one of these scanners, absolutely, and I mean absolutely, make sure to turn off auto scan to none. If you have that on, it'll do preview and then scan, then preview and then scan, and you'll be pulling your hair trying to figure out why it's doing that. Okay, so we've got all our 10 images ready to go. Let's make sure our settings are good. Everything seems to be pretty decent. Okay, scan. And now the scanner will rewind back to the first frame, now that everything's dialed in. And all we have to do is lean back, put my feet up, and let the scanner do the work for me. So scan looks to be done. It's scanning nothing, but if we open up some files, we can see we've got some images. The images are kind of green. That's just a quirk of Vuescan. It tends to make the images a bit green. I can probably correct for that in the scanning software, but I'm not bothered right now. But scans came out pretty good. No dust or dirt because of the digital cleaning or the IR clean, which is just good job, scanner. Scanner eject. And there's our film back, all scanned, cleaned, and pretty much good to go. So the big advantage of this scanner is that it has amazing quality for 35mm film, arguably the best for home users, because it can scan at a true optical resolution of 4000 dpi, given about a 22 megapixel scan for normal 35mm frames. Now that doesn't sound like a lot nowadays, but it is enough for even like the sharpest films out there. Fuji's optimistic numbers for Velvia 50 give you around 28 megapixels, although there's quite a lot of debate as to how you actually translate DPI and lines per millimeter into megapixels. It's a whole thing. But if you do a rough conversion, Velvia 50 does seem to give about 28-ish megapixels. But that's under lab conditions. In real world photographs, it's probably quite a bit lower. So 22 megapixels should be enough to handle all the data in a piece of film. Now, when I'm scanning with the camera rig, I actually downscale the 45 megapixel images that the Z8 puts out to 32 megapixels to allow for kind of cropping of the final scan to around 28 megapixels at the end of the process. So even with the camera system, I only scan at about 28 megapixels at the end of the day. Also, the Coolscan actually has a really good autofocus and auto exposure system, so each frame is always in focus as it's automatically scanning the whole roll by itself. So you don't have to adjust anything, you don't have to fiddle with anything, you don't have to adjust the camera settings. It just does it automatically, which is really, really nice. But all these advantages with the Coolscan can be done with camera scanning. Now, the camera scanning is a lot more of a manual process, but it can easily match what this scanner can do nowadays. However, the real ace up the Coolscan sleeve is digital ice, aka automatic infrared dust removal, which is just amazing as it gives you beautiful, clean, dust-free scans, particularly with Nikon's implementation of digital ice being one of the best. So when you feed a roll through this, you get clean, dust-free scans just in a folder ready to go. And the reason that's so valuable to me is because dealing with dust on camera scanning is infuriating. Like, no matter how careful I am, I just can't rid myself of it, no matter what I do. And painting out all those little specks in Lightroom or Photoshop is just not fun. It's absolutely just, it drives you crazy. It takes hours of work just to fucking clean up a scan enough, and then you do it all and you do your edits and you realize there's another speck of dust on the end of a leaf. It's maddening. In fact, it's gotten so bad at times that in some of my videos, I just didn't bother cleaning all the dust and just put the photo in the video because I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So now that we're scanning the film, you might have wondered why I've taped bags to the scanner. So normally with the full roll scanning kit or the SA30 kit, there's this actually big drum that goes on the back of the scanner to catch the film as it's being fed through the little door on the back. But I don't have that, so I just taped a Ziploc bag over the back of the scanner to catch the film and keep it from trailing around and falling on the floor. But another solution is that on Etsy there's like a cool 3D printed film feeder available for these scanners that I might buy to make it easier. Or I might just design my own one and have it 3D printed, which would be really useful for being able to just feed film in and let it go. So the scans that come out of this are actually amazing, and I'll put a few of them up on screen, but I'm not going to be going over them in any detail. I want to compare them to camera scanning with the Z8 and the pixel shift mode on the rig in a future video. So that's it for this video, guys. It's just cleaning, repairing, and setting up the Coolscan 5000 for full roll scanning. See you next time.